All right. Well, I think we'll get started now. Good afternoon, everyone. For those who I don't know in this call, my name is Ella, and I manage the Tourism Awards programs at the Tourism Industry Council SA, which includes our big SA Tourism Awards, the Top Tourism Town Awards, which we're here to talk about today, and also our new Top Tour Guide as well. Excited to kickstart Top Tourism Town in 2026 as we get well into the new year. Just as a note, this session will be recorded for people who are unable to attend today, and then also for you to use as a resource ongoing while you write your potential entry if you do choose to nominate for the Top Tourism Town in 2026. Before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from Ghana country. I pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands where you all join us from today. At TIC we recognise the diversity of First Nations peoples and acknowledge their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of South Australia. I'd also like to acknowledge that we aim to make this space an inclusive environment. So we'd like to acknowledge the people in our community who have advocated for everyone's right to belong and bring attention to the ways we can do this, as accessibility and inclusion are very important. A few notes for today. We are a small group, so if you have any questions as we go, you are welcome to pop your hand up or jump off mute or pop something in the chat if you do have any questions. Otherwise, there will be time for questions at the end as well. So there are some new faces in this group and there are some old faces who have previously participated in the Top Tourism Town Awards. But for those who are new to the program, this is a fantastic opportunity to not only acknowledge your town's commitment to tourism and celebrate the beautiful communities that we have across South Australia, but it's also a great development opportunity if you're looking to develop your, provide business capability building opportunity for your tourism offering and your destination. And also to build collateral, to raise the importance and status of tourism within your community as well. So it's a multifaceted program, and I'm keen to get into it and talk through all of the various parts of this program today. So a little bit about the program. So the Top Tourism Town Awards were first started in 2021. So this is the 6th year of this program running. It's a National Tourism Awards program that's run in every state. And then the winners from every state move on to the National Awards, which are held in September every year. So with this program, there are 3 categories. So with these categories, each of them are based on town population size. So basically, a tiny tourism town is what we would call it, would not be competing against a top tourism town in this setting. But for this program, we have top tourism town, which is for a population over 5,000 people. We have small tourism town, which is for populations below 5,000 but greater than 1,500. And then we have tiny tourism town, which is for towns that have a population below 1,500. So if you are considering nominating, make sure that you just have a look at your current population according to CBS data, and you will be asked to state your population upon nomination. So just make sure you have a look at that so that we can ensure you're nominating for the right category. If you're not sure if your town fits into small tourism town, tiny tourism town, or top tourism town, feel free to just get in touch with me and we can talk through which category is best suited to your town based on your population. So why enter this program? Like I said before, it's about reviewing what you have existing. So it's looking at your marketing collateral, it's looking at your tourism strategy and also the existing visitor experiences. It's a great opportunity for you to, as councils or visitor centres, wherever you're nominating from, it's a great opportunity to look inwards in terms of your community and see what you do have on offer, where you can improve, or if there's anything more you can be doing in your tourism strategy or more development in that marketing collateral as well. This entry that you'll put in for the Top Tourism Town Awards is predominantly centered around developing that collateral. So it involves things like a video and an itinerary and editorial, which I'll talk more about in a bit. So it's a really friendly space where you can actually develop that collateral and receive some feedback on it as well from the judging panel too. So great opportunity if you're looking for a way to get some external feedback as well. It's a great opportunity to inspire visitation to your town. This program does have a very public facing element, including a People's Choice competition, which we do run through Hello SA, who are our naming rights sponsor for this program. So it's a great opportunity to get some more visibility for your town, and encourage people to vote, and grab a prize along the way. It's a great way to showcase your community's hospitality and also celebrate your community as well and all the hard work that they put into developing an excellent visitor experience, and continue to contribute to a thriving economy as well. And there's also a fantastic prize up for grabs as well. If you do have the pleasure of winning either top or small or tiny tourism town, you do actually go into the running to receive a prize, which does include a segment on Hello SA TV, which is really exciting. It also includes inclusion in an editorial feature article in Adelaide's I think it's 6 monthly magazine, which is very exciting too. And then you do get a really cool trophy and certificate as well. Um, and then if you are a winner, you do get to go on to the national awards, which are held in Canberra in September every year at Parliament House. So that's always a real privilege, and something to look forward to if you do happen to win one of these categories. And of course, bragging rights. It's a real cool thing to be named the top or the small or the tiny tourism town for South Australia. And it's a great promotional opportunity for towns to capitalize on. Even if you are simply named as one of the finalists in one of those categories, that in itself is a huge achievement and should be promoted far and wide. So great opportunity to leverage this program to your promotional benefit as well. So key dates for this program. So nominations are currently open. All a nomination involves is providing your town's key details. So things like your town name, population, who is nominating you, who the key contact is for the nomination, and etc. These nominations will close on the 2nd of March, which is about 2 weeks away. So if you haven't already, have a look at nominating. It's just done through the QTF portal, and I'll provide a link after this webinar as well. From there, your final submission, which I'll go into detail as to what the submissions look like in a second, but the submissions are due on the 28th of April, 2026. So you're not nominating and submitting at the same time. You do have a time to collate your entry together, and those will be due on the 28th of April. From there, if you manage to get your submission in, you'll automatically go into the running for our People's Choice competition, which, like I said before, is hosted by Hello SA. So you'll be involved in a series of short TV segments and promotion over socials from Hello SA. So great opportunity to be exposed through that. And that will be an opportunity to get your community to rally around you and any visitors that you've had to your town, and encourage them to vote for you in the People's Choice competition. And from there, the town with the most votes in that competition will receive the People's Choice prize. And from there, in mid-June, we will announce all of our winners for the top, small and tiny tourism town, as well as the People's Choice winner. That will be in mid-June, and that will be at the South Australian Tourism Conference, which is held in June every year. At the moment, those dates are the 16th and 17th of June. So bookmark those in your calendars if you're planning on nominating and putting in a submission. That's where we'll announce the towns at our welcome event as part of the conference. All right, submission criteria. So the 3 tourism town categories, they're scored. It's made up of 2 aspects. So the main aspects is the 70% score from your submission. So this includes your town introduction, target market, itinerary, video, and editorial. So these are all assessed by a panel of industry judges who are put together for the purpose of this awards program. And so that score will contribute to 70% of your overall score. The other 20% that's here will be determined by your town GRI or your Review Pro GRI, which I will explain momentarily, but it's basically an aggregate of online reviews from various businesses, experiences and accommodation based in your town. So I'll explain how we put that together in a minute, but that is worth 20% of your total score. And then, whilst we do have a public consumer vote, it's just important to note that that doesn't contribute to the score for top, small, and tiny towns. It's more of an individual award that sits standalone in terms of that People's Choice Award. So the main things that will contribute to your final score is the submission overall, and then the town GRI score. So in terms of the submission components, so there are a number of components to your submission, and it's all intended to give you the opportunity to develop some new collateral, to assess where you are in terms of your commitment to tourism and who your key target markets are. And it's a great opportunity to put your creative lens on this as well. So the first component is town introduction and target market. So this is where you'll pretend the judges know nothing about your town and have never been to your town, and you'll introduce your town to them for the very first time and illustrate how tourism fits in with your town's offering. And then you'll talk a little bit about your target market, which you'll choose for the purpose of the submission. And you can talk through, the key statistics, so the demographic, geographic, psychographic features of that target market. I'll dive a little bit into some tips for that in a minute. Then you have your editorial with accompanying imagery. So this is an 800-word feature article, which you'll need to write about your town. Again, it's a really good chance to get creative. And particularly, I suppose, if you know of anyone within your council or visitor centre, or anyone externally who has experience writing feature articles, it's always a great chance to outsource that if you need to for the purpose of this submission. And that comes with 6 images that you can provide that then pair with your editorial and the content within it. Then we have videos. So this is a promotional video about your town. So you very much pretend the judges are your visitors. This should be positioned to the visitor, particularly the target market that you've identified earlier on in the submission. This video doesn't have to be, professionally made. It doesn't have to be perfect. The most important thing with this video is that it comes from the heart, and also that it clearly illustrates the different offerings that you have within your town, showcases the local experiences, the local accommodation offerings, and what people have to do and experience. And then lastly, we have our itinerary, which is basically a visitor itinerary that you will put together for the target market you've identified once again. So for this itinerary, depending on which category you're in, whether that's top, small, or tiny, the requirements are just slightly different. So for top, you'll be required to do 4 days and 3 nights. For small, you're required to do 3 days and 2 nights, that should say, not 1 night. Tiny, you're required to do 2 days and 1 night. So just keep that in mind. Depending on your category, depends on the number of days and nights that you're required to do for your itinerary. So just make sure you double check when you have nominated and you look through the entrance guide. It will detail exactly what the requirements are for your category. All right, and accommodation and experience review score, town GRI or review pro GRI as we refer to it as. So this makes up 20% of your final score. So basically, this is the average score of accommodation, attractions, and experiences in your town. So when you put forward your final submission, we will ask you to provide a specific number of accommodation and experiences for your town. So these accommodation experiences can be based in your town, or they can be based within a certain perimeter of your town as well, particularly for things like tiny town, where you may not have too many accommodation directly within your town. You can include businesses or experiences that are in the surrounds. There's just some criteria that you have to follow. So basically, you provide this list of accommodation and experiences upon submission. What will then happen is each of those accommodation and experiences will have a GRI account created for them, and that will then pull all of their reviews from the past 12 months, from March last year to March this year, into one place. And then the average of all of your accommodation experiences and services that you've provided comes up with one score. With the towns, with the accommodation experiences that you have to provide, again, similar to the itinerary, depending on your category, it depends on the number you're required to provide. So for example, top towns, you're required to provide 5 accommodation offerings and 5 attractions or experiences. Small towns, it's 3 accommodation and 3 attraction experiences. And tiny towns, it's 2 accommodation and 2 attractions and experiences. So again, once you know what category you're sitting in based on your population, make sure that you have a look at the number that you're required to provide and ensure that you're able to provide that number. If you're unsure, for example, if you want to use an accommodation or experience that's slightly out of your town boundary and you're not sure whether you're allowed to provide it, please get in touch with me and happy to nut that out for your situation. And the other really important thing to note is when you do put forward these accommodation and experiences, we do ask that you just seek the approval from the operators first. Reason being is that we are creating a Review Pro account in their name and you are using their reviews as part of a submission. So it's courtesy and polite to just ask that they're okay with you including them in the submission for this particular purpose. What I will share after this session is a fact sheet on how to select your accommodation and attractions and how to provide them for this GRI score. It also includes an email template which details what you'll be using an operator's review score for, that you can then send to operators to ask their permission to use it. So that will help you in doing that. So I'll share that after this as well. Entrance support. So before I dive into some examples of different and tips on how to get ahead and how to best prepare your submission, there is some existing support that you can tack into. So probably the biggest one will be the entrant guidebook. So upon nomination, I'll share with you the entrant guidebook, which dives deep into the different submission components and provides you with some helpful tips and advice, some of which I'll go through today. But then it will also just provide you with the key guidelines that you're required to follow, the key dates, what you need to do for each category. It's basically like your go-to Bible for the purpose of this award. So I highly encourage you, when you do nominate, or if you have already nominated, please read through that entrant guidebook before you start your submission. There might be something in there that you didn't know that might help you out as you start to navigate the different components of this entry. Then I'll share with you also the fact sheet that I was referring to before on how to generate a town GRI. So that will be helpful in helping you determine which accommodation and experiences you might select to be featured in your town GRI, and then also how to best get in contact with them to seek their business approval as well. And then there's me. I am a resource that you are more than welcome to tap into. If you have any questions or queries or want to run something by me, that's what I'm here for. So whether that's if you have any questions about the nomination or the entry process or even the entry components, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can contact me via email or phone, and happy to help in any way that I can. All right. Now we're going to dive into some top tips for each of the submission components. And these are really important things to keep in mind. These are things that the judges will be looking for. And these are things that you should consider incorporating wherever possible into your submission. So we'll start with the town introduction. So the town introduction, there's 2 components to this. There's your town's commitment to tourism, and then there's your town's chosen target market. So for each of those components, you'll have 400 words. Now, 400 words really is not a lot to justify that in such a short amount of words. So make sure that you use those words as well as you can. But basically, your town's commitment to tourism is your chance to introduce your town and predominantly talk about what tourism has looked like within your town, from an economic perspective, from a marketing perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, and from a visitation perspective. So this is where you can introduce a lot of data, and the judges love data. So it's worth thinking about what different things you can include. For example, if you've built any new infrastructure, any new marketing activity that you've had, any demonstrations of visitation growth. For a lot of visitor centres and councils, you do tend to track visitor numbers that are coming in and out. Is there any growth that you can establish from that? And are there any new visitor experiences that have been introduced in recent years as well? So that's important to consider. One thing to keep in mind with your town's commitment to tourism is it's great to include anything that's particularly been within the last 12 months within the qualifying period of March to March. You can include things from previous years, but obviously if you're including some newer things, the more current the data is, the better. So that's your town's commitment to tourism. Then you'll go into talking about your town's chosen target market. The important thing with the target market is you don't need to do multiple target markets. You just need to choose one. So your town may have, two primary target markets and multiple secondary markets. You just need to pick one for the purpose of this submission. And you must clearly identify it as well. The judges will want you to be specific in who your target market is, particularly in terms of their characteristics. So, how old are they? Where are they coming from? What are their wants and needs? What's their general income? And different things like that. So all those attributes that you think of when you think of a target market, they'll want to know the detail of that. So the most important thing here to be successful in this section is being really, really clear on who your target market is and not providing a really broad target market. Get specific. Do not be afraid to be specific. This target market as well then needs to be reflected in the rest of your submission. So it needs to be clear that your editorial, your itinerary, and your video are pointed towards that target market. It may appeal to other target markets you have, but it needs to demonstrate a link to the target market that you've chosen for the purpose of this submission. So please keep that in mind. Often where submissions come undone is where they've chosen a target market, which is great, but then it actually doesn't have any link to any of the submission components. So really important that when you choose your target market, just consider if you can design your editorial, itinerary, and video around that. If it's going to be a challenge, you might choose to go in a different direction with your target market. But the first priority should be that that target market links throughout the editorial, itinerary, and video. And also make sure to provide some clear rationale. So if you have any data on your target market, like for example, if you're tracking in terms of where visitors are coming from geographically, a lot of visitor centers do that, make sure that you're including that data in here. The judges will want to clearly understand why you've chosen this target market. It could be that it's a growth market for you that you want to explore and you're starting to get some visitors through, but you want to explore how you can capitalize on that market further. This is a really good place to include any strategic plans from the South Australian Tourism Commission, from Tourism Australia, from any of your local government strategic plans as well, from RDAs, any data from Tourism Research Australia. This is a great chance to introduce some of that secondary data that can help back up your choice of target market. So that's the town introduction. So whilst it's not the biggest element, the itinerary video and editorial are certainly bigger elements of this submission. This is a really important one to get right. This starts off your submission. This is the first thing the judges read. So it's your first impression. So think of it that way and make sure that you're really clear in what your commitment to tourism is and what your target market is for the purpose of this submission. Itinerary. So basically, as I said before, depending on your category, you're required to provide an itinerary for your target market that you've just identified before. And it should include accommodation and activities for the number of days and nights identified for your category. So for this submission, you're required to submit the itinerary in text version, so just typed up in a Word document and then put into the portal. And you're also required to provide a PDF version as well. Please keep in mind that the judges will assess the text version. They will not assess the PDF version. So the text version is where all the content will go that would be in a visual itinerary. We ask you to create a PDF version of the visual itinerary and have fun with color and images and express your town's personality, because we use that for promotional purposes as part of the People's Choice competition. But for the purposes of judging, the judges will focus solely on the text version of your itinerary, not the PDF version. So in terms of where you center your attention with this itinerary, make sure your focus is on the text version and getting the content right. And then you can move on to the creative with the PDF where you put all of your images in and you put the design elements in. Please make sure that you focus on the content of the itinerary first, and then the design can come later. In terms of what an excellent itinerary should look like I said, it needs to align to your target market. So design the itinerary for the target market that you've chosen, not just for anyone. It should reflect your town's brand and values. So if there's a particular brand that your town has or something that it's known for, this is a great opportunity to incorporate that into the content. And it's also, this itinerary as well as the editorial is all about storytelling. So think about how you can use creative language, how you can have a bit of fun with the itinerary titles and the language that you've chosen to use, or the structure as well. This is a great opportunity to get creative and align it with your town's values. It should be a compelling proposition. So think about your target market and the things that they might enjoy. The experiences and accommodation that you choose to include should align with the needs and wants of that target market that you'll express earlier. So have a think about what's compelling to your target market, and then how you can entice the reader in at the beginning of your itinerary. And then this itinerary needs to be enjoyable first and foremost, but also it needs to be achievable. So for example, if you're including accommodation or experiences that are quite a distance from one another and they're not achievable within a day, and you've put them within the same day, the judges will look at that and say, well, that's not achievable for the visitor, and so they will take away points for that. So when you're designing your itinerary and where you want your visitor to go, have a think about the distance between places and also the times that you've allotted, and think about whether or not that's achievable for the visitor to do if you were to give this out to a visitor who walked into your visitor centre. And with this itinerary as well, once you have completed your itinerary, one of the eligibility requirements will just be to pop the PDF version of that on your website, which I can talk you through when that gets to final submission time. But to help you out, I've just pulled some examples of some award-winning itineraries from the past Top Tourism Town Awards from nationals. Now, these are showing you the PDF version, but like I said, you need to prioritize the content within that before you think about the images and the design. So this one is from Trentham, who was a tiny tourism town winner for Top Tourism Town in 2025. So this tiny tourism town, it's 2 days and 1 night. The reason I picked this one is because some of the things I love about it is not only how they've talked about the different activities to do, but the way they've incorporated some fun facts and top tips throughout. So you can see on the itinerary, they've got a top tip: Trentham Falls are at their most spectacular in winter and spring when the falls show their true power and presence. That's a really great creative ad. Fun facts about some of the places that they're including. So they've got one there about the Cosmo and its heritage, which is really nice. And they've also got some alternative accommodation listed. So they've included accommodation in the itinerary, but then they've listed some alternative options if that's not their target market speed, or if they're booked out and they need another option. The other thing they've included here, which is really good, is how to get there. Particularly if you do proceed to the national awards, but also for local as well. Don't assume that the judges know exactly where you are and exactly how long it takes to get to you. Make sure you include some information about how people can get to you from Adelaide, so how far away it is and how long it will take them, and the different transport options that they have. That's a really good inclusion to have, particularly for interstate visitors who may not know South Australia too well. So have a think about how you can incorporate that in a fun way in how to get to your town. This one is an example from Bungendore, who were the small tourism town. They're based in the ACT. The thing I really like about this page is it's very creative. So if you actually look at the content that's included, they've talked about their population and land size. They've talked about where they are in proximity to Canberra and Sydney, talked about the seasons and what the weather looks like during different times of the year. They've talked about the lay of the land, and they've talked about what to expect when you're in Bungendore. And I love this, a town of makers and creators. That's a very clever title to include. So have a think about how you can include, different information about your town in a creative way. They've chosen to include it in a snapshot on one page, whereas Trentham on the previous one, they chose to include things more as general facts and top tips throughout. So have a think about how you want to do that for your itinerary. And then we have Devonport, who won silver for top tourism town. And I've pulled this one out because it's a great illustration of the content that you can include and how you can structure it. They very much structured it as morning, midday, afternoon, and evening. It's up to you how you want to structure your days. You might focus on morning, afternoon, evening. You might do early morning if you've got some sunsets experiences, sunrise experiences. It's up to you how you want to structure that day, but think creatively. And creative titles are always encouraged. But the one thing I do really like about this itinerary is they've got a choose your own adventure included. So they've got some other options for people to look at in the afternoon. So if they don't want to go to the Maritime Museum and they want to be out on the water, they can then go on to the Julie Burgess tall ship, which is obviously a heritage ship that they've got in Devonport. Or they can go to a local surf spot as well. So having that choose your own adventure option, it provides flexibility and versatility for the visitor. And it will also demonstrate to the judges that you've thought about this visitor experience from multiple different angles and thought about how the visitor can tailor their experience based on some of their preferences. Obviously, if you're targeting a specific target market for this itinerary, so your focus will be on the specific needs of them. But that being said, they're not all exactly the same. They might want to try some different things out. So being able to provide those different options gives the visitor more flexibility and more choice, which is always encouraged. I will send through a link in my follow-up email to the more winning national submissions and more examples that you can peruse for both the itinerary and the video. It's a really good idea just to have a look, just to get a sense of what you need to include in terms of content for the itinerary. And it might give you a little bit of inspiration in terms of what you want to include from a creative sense as well, in terms of how you can have fun with some of those fun facts and snapshots and creative titles and wording as well. All right, the video. So the video is a big component of your submission. This is probably, I suppose, what a lot of nominees would say is probably the most time consuming, because obviously it involves stringing a video together. So this video has to be 30 seconds to 2 minutes in length. So you could choose to do 30 seconds, you could choose to do 2 minutes. It's completely up to you. If you look at the national examples that I'll share with you, you'll see a real mix of 30-second videos to 2 minutes. It's not necessarily you have to do 2 minutes. They're the only ones that will win. It's more about how you sell your town and communicate your visitor offering through that video that will, achieve you points rather than the length of that video. But do make sure that it sits within that 30 seconds to 2 minutes to be eligible for submission. So the video should highlight key attractions and experiences in your town. And like I said, it needs to be aligned to your target market that you've chosen before. So make sure that it's linked to that target market. A really good way to do that is often people will choose to have stand-ins of visitors enjoying experiences. So think about who those visitors are that you're including in that video and if they reflect the target market that you're trying to communicate to. For example, if your target market is families, you might choose to have a family of 4, a couple and then 2 young children feature in your video. So have a think about the people you want to include in that video, and if there's a chance to just clearly align it with your target market so that those visitors see themselves doing those experiences in the video. This also must be widescreen and high definition. So in terms of the professionalism of this video, it does not have to be professionally made. What is asked though that it is in widescreen, and there's specific parameters within the rules and guidelines in the entrant rules and guidelines. And then it's also high definition. So basically just focus on it not being blurry. Everything is really easy to interpret in the video. And iPhone cameras are really good these days. So as long as you are using a camera that enables you to provide that high definition, whether it be an iPhone or a camera or a proper equipment set, just make sure that everything is able to be viewed appropriately. Your town should be at the center of the concept. So make sure that everything in the video comes back to your town. Obviously, you can feature things in and around your town, but make sure it always comes back to your town. Think about how you can be creative and evoke an emotional response from the viewer. Often the music choice can evoke an emotional response, or the choice of voiceover as well. If you choose to include a voiceover, which you can or cannot, it's up to you. Think about the different ways that you can evoke an emotional response, the people that you include in terms of how that aligns with your target market. There are a few options there to help you evoke emotion. I highly recommend going and looking at some of the winning top tourism towns, particularly Bungendore, actually, who won Small Tourism Town. Their video is really centered around community values. So think about how you could get the community involved as well. This is a great opportunity to get your community behind a submission by involving them in the video and in the creative process. And then the theming should reflect your town's brands and values. So, if there's particular values that you as a town communicate throughout your visitor offering and destination marketing, we'll make sure to include that in your video as well. Keep it consistent. That enables you to then use the video easily throughout other collateral and promotion beyond this awards program. So think about how you can incorporate that there. But I will send through some examples for you to peruse as well. And lastly, editorial with accompanying imagery. So as I said before, it's an editorial style feature article. It's no more than 800 words. And the premise of this article centers around why visitors should come to your town and what they could experience during a visit. So, think of it as a chance to persuade more visitors to your town in a creative way, and make sure that you include a number of accommodation and experiences that you've included in other elements throughout your submission as well to entice them. Much like the itinerary, we require you to submit a text version of the article in the portal and then just upload an additional PDF version. As with the itinerary, the text version will be assessed by the judges, not the PDF version. The PDF version is just for promotional use only. And the article must be accompanied by 6 high-resolution PNG images, free of copyright. So those images should link to your editorial. So these images shouldn't be randomly selected. They should be curated based on the contents of your editorial. So for example, if you've chosen to include a specific experience, an image of that experience would pair really well. What to keep in mind when planning your editorial. So think about a hook that you can include early in the piece. Editorial style feature articles generally always start with a hook. So think about what your hook will be, and often that hook will have a little bit of an alignment to your video and the itinerary. The writing should be directed to the visitor. So the visitor is your audience. So think that this is going to be published in a magazine and you're trying to directly communicate to your preferred visitor from that target market. So the writing should be directed at them, no one else. Focus on telling a story with your editorial. So it shouldn't read like the itinerary, where the itinerary is quite structured. There's a process that you follow in terms of mapping out the different activities. The editorial should focus on storytelling purely. So, you very much, it's an opportunity to take your visitor on a journey through the different experiences that they could experience for themselves. So have a think about how you can effectively tell that story. Often it will follow a flow in terms of, morning activities to night, but it's not like the itinerary where there's a specific structure that it follows. It should sound fluid, and it should read like a story, not an itinerary. And again, it should be consistent with a specified target market with the video and itinerary supplied. So again, there are some examples that I can share with you to help you get started, and some resources. If you've never written an editorial style feature article, it can always be a little bit of a daunting process. So there's certainly some resources I can share. And always happy to answer questions about editorial style feature articles as well. So that's the submission in a nutshell. It's a very exciting process to go through. Obviously, it's always a very daunting and slightly it can be a slightly time-consuming process. This itinerary video and editorial article do take a bit of curation, and I'm sure there'll be many drafts and a bit of back and forth. But it's a great opportunity to build some promotional collateral for your town that will serve you in the long run. So it's two birds with one stone, so to speak. But I suppose from the people who are in here at the moment, do you have any questions? You're welcome to either come off mute or just pop them in the chat. But if you do have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to me over email or phone. If you just want to nut out whether a nomination is the right move for you this year, want to talk through any of the different submission elements, or if you've got any concerns at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. But do we have any questions from the floor now? Doesn't look like it. That's all good. You know where to find me in order to ask some questions, but I do hope that this session has been informative in terms of what you need to start considering in terms of a submission, the key things that you need to remember, and also some examples just to help you provide a little bit of that guidance as to what is expected from each component, particularly the itinerary and the video and the editorial. Nominations will close on the 2nd of March. So please, if you are planning on nominating, please get your nomination in by then. And that will enable you to start working on the submission in the lead up to them being due on the 28th of April. But in the meantime, I hope you'll have a lovely rest of your Monday afternoon, and I'll be in touch with some follow-up. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.